Did you say something, Walt? I think you're muted. Where's her fucking clicker? Sit. No. You're still muted, Walt.
We're gonna have to either move closer together so that everybody can see what's going on. Still maintain your 6 foot distance.
Okay. They did a nice job like that. Nice clear sunset. There was a lot of trees in there.
Okay.
That was a whole lot.
No, I'm not muted.
No, I can hear you now, Walt.
Okay. Okay. It's the time to like.
Yeah, way behind.
He just
Coming in from China.
Okay, I think we're ready then. Can we see? We're almost. I'm getting one person here and one person over.
I was trying to say so that if you were sitting there, then
I'd rather be where. I'm not gonna sit in front of it. I'll go
Okay.
back there.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We're ready then. So I'll call the meeting to order. How we want to do that? Where is?
Where he's at.
Okay, you said you have,
I get stuff.
and I'm just gonna turn it over to you right now. That mic. You know what's happening is it's playing back to you. So I got YouTube.
relay.
He's got a feedback on it.
It's
Looks like it's out. Oh.
I know, it's windy.
He's up to Cross Lake.
Oh,
I'd
is he?
rather be where he is.
Yeah.
Me too.
A little less noisy.
Okay.
Chad, your microphone must be on right now. No, it's not you. Who is this? Oh, Melissa's is on. Want me to mute you?
She didn't even join audio, so I don't know how.
Well, I'm seeing you, but her microphone is the only one live, so. I just muted it, so we're good. We're good. We're going.
Was Wendy tending to her strawberries today? No? Oh, yeah, she went to the lake, you said.
Okay.
What's that, Walt?
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much for inviting us to have you meet with us this evening. It gives us an opportunity to explain the LCS budget, gives us some time for feedback from both sides back and forth and see our rationale as we come in with it. It also gives us some time to take a look at this and see through transparency what the school committee has been working on for the last 2-3 months. And I do want to commend the Limestone Community School Committee. They worked really hard on this. We spent months and days and looking at different options as we go through that. So what I'd like to do first is just so everybody has a good understanding where some of the revenue comes from. I'd like to share what is called the ED 279 with everybody. The ED 279 tells us exactly where our money comes from the state and how we deal with that. While we're looking at the ED 279, there's a second sheet I'd like to share with you too. We'll be bouncing back between the two. It's the LCD proposed budget for FY 21. It's broken down into categories as we're used to last year. Remember, this is the second year we'd be going into our organization. As you know, any kind of organization, it takes a few years to straighten out different things back and forth. It's nothing you can do overnight because we found a lot of falsified information before or just misplaced information. So if you look at the second sheet I sent out to you, which is called the LCS proposed budget FY21, the revenues right there. How we come up with the revenues projection, what do we do with that? If you look at the ED 279 and go to the next to the last page is the real easy one to deal with because all the other pages tells the state how it determines these figures. Number of students, the operation expense, teachers and everything like that. If you look at page, what page am I on? Next to the last page, I guess it doesn't print page. Section 5, actually it's section 5. The total amount of money between what is raised, needs to be raised by the town and also what the state is $2,633,381.44. That's with the towns and state. The state part of it is $2,112,315.44. To get that amount of money, you have to, as a community, raise $521,066. That's under the proposed budget. It says ED 279. That's where that figure is coming from, but it's a false figure because if you look at the next page, because we broke away from RSU 39, and for the next 20 years, as I understand it, we've got to calculate the debt service in there. And the last page is a debt service, which is a total of $630,899.57. You actually don't see it, but you got to put it in the budget so everybody knows where it's come from. The state intercepts that and sends that right to the main mutual bond bank where it was funded.
So when you say debt service, what exactly is that?
That's the new school at RSU 39.
Okay.
At this point, okay? And I'm going to come back and address that a little bit further. That's the approved debt service from the state. And we have to put it in there. So under revenue, you notice the total including bond is $3,582.25, $582,025.57. That's the figure that has to be in the article. That's the total. But out of that, you got to pull out that debt service. That's got to come out of there. We don't see it, but you got to put it in the warrant, or you don't have enough to cover everything when you do the whole thing. Our actual budget for LCS is the bottom one, where it says actual LCS is $2,951,126. It's confusing as devil, but that's the way you got to do it because of that debt service with RSU 39. You remember RSU 39? You voted on the school, and that's how it goes through the process through there. So you have to keep that in mind also. We'll come back and visit the EG 279 in a second. But to finish the first section of the LCS proposed budget, you got the amount of money that's coming from the state. What you actually look at is $1,481,415. To get that, you've got to raise $521,066 to get the state. You have to raise that amount. There's nothing about it. If you cut that, they cut the subsidy percentage-wise. Same idea. The next number is town additional. To balance the budget off with every expense of everything, the town is looking at $566,474.13. Has 2 stars behind it. Why? Because the school committee said, if we did that in FY21, we're proposing to take $150,000 from the school reserve account to reduce the combined town portion. So by taking the $150,000 out, that number is going to be down by $150,000. So when you add what is required in additional, it comes to $937,540.13. That's what we're asking the citizens of Limestone to raise, that amount right there. That's approximately about $2,000 more over from last year. Now, why? What happened here in the revenue? First thing, when you deal with the budget, you usually have carryover money, or what we call in school locality is called a fund balance. The fund balance last year we used, if you notice, was $223,002. That was the money that we predicted to get from RSU 39 under the withdrawal agreement, 15.4% of their undesignated assigned balance. Looking at the pattern for the last 5 years, it was over $1 million, close to $2 million. That's why we estimate it. I don't know why it dropped. We're still trying to figure that out. It dropped and we only received 149,000. So there's a shortfall there for this year. Next year, you notice a 0. There's no fund. We don't have any carryover because we had to take care of that shortfall there. One category so far, there's a shortfall. We didn't have that much money come over from RSU 39 that we anticipated. So that's a problem number 1. MSSM is an additional amount of money that we charge for Wing B, basically, in the offices at $382,170. Last year, we agreed to keep the same amount of money that we charged them for lease and operation for those 2 things. At the same time, we gave them additional square footage. If you go back and look at the 10-year contracts, like I have studied it, like the committee has asked me to take a look at that, that is roughly $6 a square foot for operation, $6 a square foot for maintenance. So that's roughly $192,000 in each category. Right, it comes up to 382. That's where that figure is coming from. Now, I might want to slide in this year, FY29. MSSM says we don't want to do that this year. We want you to reduce it by $150,000. 130, thank you, $130,000. If we reduce that by $130,000, that means I got to go back and ask the taxpayers for $130,000. The school committee feels that's totally unfair. So we're approaching that through our attorneys at this time, and we'll keep you posted at that point. But we're putting in what we agree, which we felt was very fair, $382,170. Then comes the debt service. The debt service is $630,000, like I showed you on ED 279 on that last page. That's a flow through, basically flow through money, but you got to show it. That's a $630,899.57. That's why the budget looks so big, 3.5 million, because of that debt service right there. That's where it's all coming from at this point.
How is that number derived?
The 630?
Yep.
State drives it by the loan value, what they did down there. What RSU 30, what they were determined the percentage that Limestone was going to have to call if they stayed with RSU 39, which is 15% of the whole building cost, what they have to pay back. I gather 15%. Is that what you're
Everything
figuring?
was based on 15.14%, so I
Yeah.
assume that's the same.
That's the
percentage.
same idea. That's how they come up with that.
So basically, that last page of the 8279, that's what the state says we owe and when we owe it, and it is what it is. That's.
Yeah.
Okay,
Remember, you don't see that at all.
right.
It's intercepted by the state and sent right to the main bond back. But you gotta put it in the articles,
Mhm.
required to do that. That's the crazy part about the whole thing. But we're required to do it, we're required to do it. Okay,
Still have the other debt service too, though.
yeah, that's a local debt service, and I'll talk about that later, okay? So that's an explanation of the fund balance, what happened there. Tuition cost for high school was budgeted at $8,850.26% from the original document we talked about way back about this time a year ago when we were putting it together the first time around. They changed that to the state subsidy maximum, which went from 11.2. So looking at the difference right there, we had to catch it up in this budget somewhere. That's another reason why you don't have any fund balance. We had to catch it up. We didn't go back to the public and ask for additional money because they changed that by the wording of the withdrawal agreement.
And we had planned on 8,800, which is what, it still bothers me because we had planned on it, then we budgeted on it and they changed it in November to be 11,000.
Well, that's when I should have went back to the people for a vote
We couldn't
and
vote
not
on it.
wait until now.
Well, we couldn't, there was nothing we could do about it because we agreed to pay the lesser of the two, the state maximum or the rate that the school charges, but we didn't realize that they could change it in November. I did not realize they could change that in November and they did. So.
But that didn't cost the public anymore at that time
That-
because we covered it.
But it still should have went back to the people.
Hmm?
There was a serious change in the budget. And what was told to them at the day of the voting.
Mhm.
It was changing that.
Everything, any increase or decrease should have went back to the public for a vote.
One may look at that, but
But they stayed within their budget.
we stayed within the budget. We didn't increase the budget at all. The maximum amount, what the town of Limestone voted last year, we did not go over. We can't.
We had to pay more for tuition, so
So
we had.
where's it all coming from? When did all this start? When all this?
When we found that out, we cut back a lot of stuff we could not do. Because when we took the building over, the building for 10 years wasn't maintained up to standards, let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, everybody knew that. That should have been taken care of long before the school even decided to come back.
Well, I can't answer that. I was
I know
hired,
You can't. but
Yeah.
The school committee can,
well, they're brand new too. They came on with me, brand new.
because that school was being run down and they weren't putting a dime into it.
But what we did, at the end of the presentation, I'll tell you the positive parts, what we did. So bear with me until we get the whole, okay? I understand it could be frustrating as we go through this. But another thing we found that no one ever, when we looked at the transition withdrawal agreement, there was a clause in there said, if you have elementary kids going to Careville, they need to keep going over there and tuition paid. No one picked that up. No one read that.
Well, we didn't realize they had all those students because
No one told you, right?
no one told us. We aren't privy to that information before the withdrawal, so we didn't know they had 20 of our Limestone students going to Caribou that we would be stuck paying for. That deal was made based on the high school students already going there.
So that was another deficit we had. I'm trying to explain why we don't have any fund balance. That's what happened. We had to pick that up at the same time. So that's why the big difference in the fund balance. The other thing is last year, to help the taxpayers out because we're starting a new year, we took 250,000 out of the reserve. That we brought it down. When you take it out of the reserve, you're gonna pay the pauper sometimes, because that's gonna run out sometime.
Following year. Yeah, following year, like we're gonna do this year.
Well, yeah, you're gonna run out.
150 grand.
Yeah.
It's gonna go on to the school budget next year. 22,
No, it will be less than that because we're only taking 150 out this year.
that's what I said. It's
Yeah.
21.
Wait. But with everything we planned, we're going to try to make that difference up. But we'll go through it. Back when I started in this area 25 years ago as a superintendent in another school district, this LCS with military base left, and they left it $5.5 million in the bank. Over the years, I don't know what happened. It's water over the dam, it's gone, it's gone. The only thing, I came into it in March and Kathy came into it in March as a school chair. We only had $500,000. That was it. Last year with everything going on and so many unknowns, we decided to take $250,000 out with recommendation from a lot of community members. That's why we did that. So now we're down to 250,000. We're recommending taking 150. Eventually, we're going to get out of here. I'll come back and address that also, but I just wanted to get through this part first from the revenue to help you understand what we're looking at or anything else. Now, under the expense, this is the part as we go through the expenses here. I put FY20 this year and a proposed FY21. What Walt did, and thank you, Walt, is put it in a spreadsheet. He told me to do my homework before I came up, so I had to fill some numbers in. So I filled them in and printed it off. And this goes along with the explanation that I have with my folder, what I gave you the first part. So not to get totally confusing. You can see there's some differences as we go through. These are divided into what is called cost centers. Cost centers are roughly 11 centers what you have to deal with in the school budget. Each one of those would have to be voted on if you went to a regular town meeting, okay? I keep saying we're going to talk about, but we're going to get through this. So the expense parts, as you go through that and look at a spreadsheet, some are up, some are down, some are back and forth there. The major things I want you to be aware of, you can take each line, look at each line, say why this up, what this down, is when we did the budget in March of 2000 last year, when we did that, we were going by information that was presented to us from another school district that we thought was very reliable. We found out there wasn't. We also, some categories, some people were in the wrong place. They had more in custodian than they should have been pushed over to transportation because that's where the majority of their work is done. And I divided it out so you can figure out where everything goes. So this year, we got a better handle where all these people need to be done on this part here. By working through each one of these categories, you can see the difference here. What we also did is I was able to get a Title V grant. Title V is what we used to call the old REAP grant. It comes from the feds. By going to Title V, ever since what? Well, 2002, we started giving them back there maybe. It's been a long time. And we were not eligible to get that last year because we broke away. This year we are. By going through the federal money, I was able to take a high paying teacher out of this budget, move it over to the federal money. So that helps us in the bottom line as we go through there. So all these kinds of things goes back and forth. And as I started out at the beginning of this meeting is, it takes a few years to get all these adjustments where we need it. Next year, you're going to see a printout right from the computer from ADS. Chris is going to give you each category. You can see each line broken right down. What happened this year, what we propose next year. We would love to do it this year, but ADS has screwed up so bad at the beginning of the school year, we had a hard time. It's not just easy to press the button and have it come out. But we're working through that problem, like many problems we did through. So if you want to go by expenses, each of the cost centers, you're very welcome to do that. And I'll explain why one's up or why is one down or what's happening there and what's in those categories, because those categories are summaries of different areas there. And I'll give you an example. The very first one says regular instruction. That includes the tuition to RSU 3904 Fairfield next year. That's part of it right there. That's in there. And why is there an increase of tuition next year? Because we have a larger number of kids going to high school than that actually graduated. I think there was a net gain for us of 11 kids. We have a big 8th grade moving over, and we had a small senior class go up. So you've got approximately 11, was it? Chris is my memory for me right now.
Yeah, it was approximately 5 graduating, and so it was a net of 11.
Net of 11,
This
so
class going out of 8th grade into 9th grade is like
18,
18 students. Yeah.
because you got 4, you got some other ones. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically you get some, that's the big increase in that category there. That's an example of what we're looking at. The second category is special education. It's gone from 235,000 to 293,000. We did have a retirement in special ed. The teacher, and we were able to get a reduced down the teacher. I'm looking at a new teacher with a lot less money there. The problem there is we inherited a senior going over next year to OTC, which is a private special ed school in Presque Isle. By law, we have to pay for the transportation going there. We have to pay if there's an ed tech with that person, and we have to pay for the tuition, $55,000. And I have no control over that. They send me the bill, I gotta pay it. Because under the laws, under IEP, we have to do that. We have 2 students. One is a kindergarten one, and one is a 12th grader this year. So we're looking at $110,000 going right out of our community right off the bat. No control, none at all, because of special ed.
That number, just to throw in, that's just a rough number, because we also, in addition to that, if their IEP says they need special summer services such as speech or OT or any other service, we have to pay for that as well. State mandates we pay for that as well.
Extended services, yes.
So in next year, if you see that line item goes a little bit above what we budgeted, there's other factors that play into that.
So is there still money coming back from, I don't know, years ago, it was the federal government that helped out with the special education. Is there any of that still happening? Or?
We applied for it, we have not heard. It's an unknown. We only could do it with 1 student this year. And I think the maximum was 30, anything over 32,000, we could apply for it. We have no idea. So you can't stand, and you know, you work at the state wall as long as I have, you can't depend on what they say until you get the money in your hand.
Keep your fingers crossed, that's all you can do.
Yeah. So yes, we did fill the forms out and get that going through. Co-curricular, extracurricular, self-explanatory, went down a few bucks there. That's all our sports teams, our DI teams, our robotics, all those different kind of combinations there. That's what that is. That's what that comes out to. Any questions on the first 3 categories? Or am I going too fast for you guys? Slow me down. Because I live and eat this stuff, and
I have to tell them to slow down sometimes. For
Yeah.
me.
it's, after you get used to it, you follow the pattern.
Yeah.
Just like our town manager, he knows in and out of the town stuff. I don't. He knows that, but jumping into school stuff, that's what I'm here for, to help you guys out on that.
Why did the transportation go up so much?
Because we had categories, the people in transportation, when we did initial ones, was not in that category where they're supposed to be. We moved them out of OM. If you look at operation maintenance, which is the next one, I think, where's the, you're down a couple pages ahead of me, aren't you?
Yeah.
We're still on the page, yeah, I know.
Okay, transportation is up because we had to change across there. You look at the custodial maintenance, that's down.
No other instruction.
Oh, you want to go back to other instructions? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Transportation went from 2,675,000.
Field trip.
Field trip, what we did in the elementary, you always had a category for field trips there. I took it all out and put it in there. That's where that is. That takes for any field trips, that takes for any soccer trips, that anytime we use the buses in those categories. If DI team needs to go to Waterville to a competition, that comes out of that category. So I moved them out where I needed to put them in.
That was split before.
Yes, it was in the elementary. Yeah. I think it was under the 3 through 8. But it's all lumped together in the instructional.
And we were estimating based on what information we had about how many clubs were here for the elementary kids and, you know, an average of where they would be going for competitions. This year, it looks like a lot of the competitions, unfortunately, are further south. So that's gonna require.
But it is a section that can be cut right out.
It can't, I don't think you could necessarily cut it out because the kids, I mean, it's
You
completely.
just, they want to, like, I'll give you an example. If you cut it out totally, we have 12 games of soccer, 6 are home, you can't do the travel, 6 away.
No, I'm talking about the whole thing, the whole section here, other instructions.
If you cut the other instruction out, there's no extra activities for these kids. None.
Unless it's voluntary.
Uh,
The volunteers can handle it, right?
If volunteers come in, they handle, but they can only volunteer on campus. You can't send that liability out, let them travel with anybody. That's a liability issue.
We basically, for what you're talking about, and I understand where you're coming from, just for the transportation piece of that, if a bus driver wanted to volunteer their time to take the students for a field trip or for an activity, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to for that.
No, I'm talking about the whole section.
Oh, right. But I'm just saying, like,
$1,000.
yeah,
If you cut that out, you don't have any opportunities for these kids unless they're volunteers.
Volunteers. And we are, if the bus driver, we own the buses, correct? Or is that somebody else?
No, they're ours.
Okay, that if a bus driver volunteers to take those kids from here to there,
We got to pay for the mileage.
oh, you know, we have to pay the gas, that's not.
Right.
And if the volunteer is an employee of the school district, you got to pay them under the main law, labor laws. You can't, you got to pay them.
there's so many rules and regulations now around all this
This
stuff.
never should have gotten this far. It should have stayed right with RSU 39.
Should have been the same thing.
It would cost more. But this is where we are at this point.
Yeah.
Because I can't have Chris volunteer to drive a bus because he's an employee. I gotta pay him.
Well, no, you have
Main
to be a
labor
bus
law.
driver too. You have to be licensed to drive the bus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to have one of the bus drivers.
Yeah, they can't volunteer because they're employees.
If you want to know the history of it, it's called the Garcia Law. It was a volunteer fireman in Texas in the department. He was a paid fireman and they got in a kind of initial social and politically, and they found out that he was volunteering to be a fireman on his time off, keep the cost down for the town. They had to pay him back pay.
Yep.
All the hours he worked. And it's, ever since then, it's blossomed out into everything going. I'm old, I've been around a long time.
It's good to know.
And we're right there with you, and there too. Okay, where are we?
Staff support.
Staff support,
Staff, yeah.
On the first page.
student and staff. Okay, that's the social worker. That's the school nurse. That's the technology staff and all the equipment that goes along with it. Why it's up a little. Basically, it's the equipment basically where we're on. 2 years ago, and Walt will have to help me on this, you had a flood here. And the flood destroyed a lot of technology stuff like that. So when we incorporated this building, all our extra stuff that was claimed on insurance wasn't there. That's another issue we got to look at in time. They got a claim for $37,000. The other school got a claim for $37,000, but they did not replace the textbooks or the technology equipment at this point. So Chris is trying to run a technology place through stuff we could steel bag borrow from another school district this year because we don't have any equipment. And that's the bad part of it. That's why that's up increased there.
And with distance learning, we
Yeah.
must have it.
That was the other big thing is the state's is asking us to increase our availability for distance learning because of all the unknowns right now. And if we have to go back again
Mhm.
to off-campus learning, we need to make sure that we have and are able to supply equipment to the students and the teachers that can keep them going and sustain.
And we also moved the social worker from 1/2 to 4/5 because of the needs of the students here required it. So overall, that's not a bad increase when you take a look at that.
So with some of the bad deals you've got from Caribou, at what? at
Which
what-
one? Which one,
well,
Chris? So come on.
The multiple, but at what point do you enter into arbitration or enter into a full lawsuit?
All I can tell you now, Chris, it's in the attorney's hands.
Okay.
Okay, we can't really expand on it because it's in their hands.
But we're not just accepting, okay,
It's not being sat on.
but, okay, that's,
If it's a standard loss, whatever, you're talking 10 years, most of us won't even be here.
I plan to be here.
Well, just to get that money back.
Yeah, it's gonna time consume, but I got a boss. My boss tells me I cannot let that sit. And I have to move on those things. So we've been working with attorneys. All I can say, we're working with attorneys this time. There is some bad issues there. We're trying to wash them out. Next, gentlemen, lady.
System administration.
System administration. System administration is the central office in the school board. Under the school board is all our insurances that we have to cover, our liability insurances, our crime insurances and things like that. It pays for my salary and also pays for part of the HR secretary. We found out this year that we cannot run it with a lean, one secretary running back and forth there. She was going crazy. She couldn't do it. So it was not, it's not a full, it's part-time, comes out of this. I'll show you where the rest of it comes out later. The question is, in the rumor out there, I got a hell of a raise. That's false.
He didn't even ask for more.
Exactly the same. I signed an extension for 2 years contract with exactly the same amount of money. There's no increase in raises there.
so one of the questions that has been asked and been asked several times is on the town side, we didn't give any raises because we're trying to hold the line to keep the very high mill rate down. And part of the reason I think this failed was we weren't knowledgeable enough about your budget, but also the concern that we didn't give raises, that possibly you guys did to non-union employees, because I understand if there's a contract, it is what it is. And how do we tell our employees on our side that that you can't have raises, but you're able to do it up on the hill?
On the hill. I love that. I love that, Chris. In that category, there's no raises.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you want to go to the second category, which is a school administration, yes, there is a raise. Like any leader team, you need a good leader here.
Yep.
You only pay me to be in this building 1 day a week. That's all you pay me. The other day, I work at a home. And if you talk to Kathy and Chris, I'm 24/7. I talk to Kathy 9:30, 10 o'clock almost every night. Chris is calling me, so I actually work more than what I work to get the job done.
Yep.
And I'm going to take the phrase from the town manager, is because I like it, I see a challenge, and I wanted to come here. I think those, what the town manager quoted, same idea, same thing.
Drinking.
Oh, you're drinking too? Okay. No, I wasn't.
They might be after this.
Yeah. So in that category, the principal recognized that we're going to have a hard time the first year, so he agreed to a lower wage
Yep.
at that time. To keep a talented person that is certified in state of Massachusetts principal with experience, you gotta pay him something. And I'm gonna pick on the town manager again. To get a talented person like this gentleman here, you have to pay more than what you were expecting. And we were grateful enough for 1 year that we kept him low, and we did give him a $7,000 increase this
Now,
year.
is there a vice principal?
No, there's not. He carries the whole show. It's his building when I'm out of here. In fact, when I'm in here, it's still his business, his building. He runs the whole show there. Chris is the HR person, part-time, like 15%, and he reports to the principal. I come in 1 day a week. I do the superintendency stuff. I do not do the building stuff. That's not my job. Obviously, I oversee it and they get stuff back from me, but you're paying this experienced person the quality of work that you want done. We asked for a principal to come in last year. One of the major problems we had from what the community was telling us, there was lack of discipline. That was corrected. I think I saw a big difference in that this year than what I heard before. And there was a lot of different issues that we talked about. So using the same example again, and I don't want to keep picking on you, town manager.
Oh, he's got broad shoulders.
Yeah,
Great.
We're all gonna pick on.
Yeah, we've been, he's been around the block. I've been around the block for 40 years in education. He's been, I don't know how many years in town management, doesn't matter. We know what we're doing. And that's why Kathy hired to put these things together. I'm not a good wordsmith person. I'm the numbers guy, and that's what they hired me for. Kathy is a wordsmith person.
And I'd like to point out too that our principal is making less than the previous principal when we were in the RSU. So we are getting a deal there.
Let me give you an example. She was getting $92,000 2 years ago, plus $14,000 worth of benefits. He's getting this proposed next year is 85 with $9,000 benefits. So you see there's a savings there too. When you take a look at these things in more detail, but everybody needs to take a look at it. So to get good people, town manager, you gotta pay. You can't pick someone off the street and do this kind of job.
Right? Just so people understand that those of us that have retired multiple times, and we have retirement from the private sector, we have a social security, even though it's not quite worded that way, we have to pay income tax at a higher rate because we're paying money. Plus, we're coming into an area where typically finding people who come here and stay here and work the amount of hours we work, because this is kind of, I'm kind of joking that it's a hobby, but this is what people like us do. And, that's where it comes into is he can't come up here and I can't come up here and do what we're doing, the amount of hours we're doing it, and wind up that the cost of being here and the loss of income tax and everything else takes more out of it than we're making. You've got to make some. And truthfully, when you look at it, the rural areas, that's one of the problems is how do you get the quality help with people that are workaholics, as we used to say in the private sector. We don't know enough to go home. And it's very critical that we're at a real crossroads here. And I said this before, and I know you and I have talked about it. This is kind of a real drop dead date. We're either going to work our way through this year and move forward and find resolutions to these things, or the ship will sink. It's that difficult. And we're compounded with the fact that this virus, a major chunk of the educational money in the state right now comes from the casinos. They've been closed for 3 months.
Right.
Who knows what that's going to do next year to the state? And so,
That's where the
I
question-
think you're fortunate right now. You've got a couple of people who've come here. In my case, I brought the weather with me in case you're wondering.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Really?
Appreciate that.
This is just a typical day at the pool. And, it's critical that we all work together, because this is a situation that the public, and I said this the other night, and a lot of people talk about it and how they're upset. We've got to educate the public. And it's okay for people to be for or against it, everything else, but we're facing a year where we're already 1 month by the time the meeting happens, which means the tax bills are going to be pushed out a month. Typically, the school has a belief that when the state says it's going to give them money, that they're going to get it. The municipal side is they may tell us we're going to get money, then maybe we won't. And I'm not too awfully sure that's not going to apply to the schools this coming year if they don't have the money. So
Well,
That's right.
I can tell you right now, in the business manager meetings that we've been having, the state is right now looking at possibly one curtailment payment. And that'll be about $110,000 into our budget.
Yeah.
However, with the budget and stuff, it'll be later on in the year,
Yeah.
so we'll have time to make
But
it.
if our taxpayers, even if they vote the budget 100% and they're happy to do so, we're still gonna be another month later getting our money coming in, and that means you're gonna be another month later getting your money from us. And so, I mean, this is a real storm. We've got to get through it if we're going to find ways to resolve all the issues that we've got in the best interest of the people.
Right.
And, you know, I'll leave it at that, but
Yeah, I got some proposals at the end to share with you guys too, because I like to leave it positive. Well, Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Jim, I apologize, Jim, for not knowing your name.
Right.
Where do you want to go next?
Well, the next one is school admin, but we already talked about that.
Okay, yep.
Transportation.
Yeah, the biggest thing is moving people around back and forth. That's why the increase there. You see, we dropped some increase in fuel. We found out that was way high, so we dropped that down. So my bosses tell me I got to be a good stewardship of money. And that's what we're looking at. If we're looking at a curtailment for next year, I'm going to be very conservative as coming out the poll to find out what we're dealing with. I got to be conservative because I just can't go back to town manager says I need another $200,000 from taxpayers. He's going to say out the door, I'll talk to you later. Just can't do that. So you got to be very good stewardships of money as we go through this.
So the lines with heating fuel, vehicle fuel, this year prices were way down. And we don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, we can see them starting to slowly climb already.
Right.
So is this still gonna be?
Our estimate is very comfortable at this time because the contract we signed with the RSU 39 this year, they're going to bring the high school, they're going to send a bus over here, pick up our high school. We don't have to send a bus over there every day. So that's going to cut down mileage. And at night, they're going to deliver, just like they have.
That makes quite a change right there.
So that's a difference. That's what we negotiated that through, and that's what we got, a 1-year contract.
And if I can add one thing on the heating fuel for the building, we were able to get the wood boiler straightened out, or the biomass boiler straightened out, so it actually ran about 95% of the winter. We also got our contracts in actually ahead of a couple other schools and big municipalities, so we were able to secure our contract on wood chips before they were. We got about a $10 per ton discount off of what all the other areas got. We also found out this winter too that we could save money by, instead of using our hardwood contract, which is where we were saving the $10 a ton, there is a softwood cedar mill in Bridgewater that we were alerted about, and we tried burning that in the bio boiler and it actually went quite well. The softwood is about half the price per ton of the hardwood, and it burns. It was about, you used about 20 to 30% more of the softwood in the cold winter months than we did on the hardwood. However, our overall savings was where we figure on this budget why we can bring it down. All winter long, I think we only used about 18,000 gallons of heating oil. And that was when, unfortunately, we do have a problem that we've pretty much corrected with the biomass pit in the spring, or in the winter, if we get a thaw, water comes in because we're sitting right on top of ledge. So we do have to shut it down when the water comes up too high because it gets into the conveyors and the motors.
Call the pump.
That's what we did. We put a couple brand new pumps in, we fixed the problem, and that's why we were able to run the system 95% of the
Every
winter.
couple of years, we've had to replace the pumps.
Well, of course you do.
Yeah, this year here we put in, it's a commercial macerator pump. That's got a guarantee, and it actually, if a wood chip gets down in there, it actually can slice it up and spit it out without clogging it and seizing the pump up like the other ones that were in there.
And I understand that Honeywell has done some upgrades to our
have.
technology in there too.
They have.
because That was so far behind that it was causing a lot of problems myself.
The-
Because I kept maintaining it before, so
Yeah.
I know about.
Yeah, and the other thing that we have too, unfortunately, it didn't happen, it was supposed to. Messersmith, who is the company that owns the boiler, and maybe I'm getting into too much detail just to give you guys
It's okay.
understanding. Measuresmith, the company who built the boiler, the software and the firmware haven't been upgraded on the boiler since it was put in. Its original firmware that still runs off of dial-up. They were able to dial in and do some of the upgrading. However, they're gonna finish doing, they were supposed to come in November when they were putting the boiler in over at the new RSU school. However, with their delays, that didn't happen. They still haven't got the boiler over there put in yet. When they do come, instead of charging us the fee to come and do the upgrades, which is like about $3,000 to $5,000, they're gonna come over when they come up to work on the boiler for the RSU. So that'll be a savings to us as well. They're gonna update the firmware. That'll update some of the sensors, so we'll have a higher efficiency coming out of that, which also will help
Now, is
us.
the boil, the pool now run off the bio, or is it still using the old boiler?
We have the old boiler when the school's not calling for heat during the summer when it's up and running. We usually don't turn the bio boiler on until mid-October, November when it gets down cold, because your efficiency, if you're running that when it's too warm, the boiler's just running to heat water for nothing. So that's when we do use the small oil boiler, and that was one of the reasons why we used probably, we may have used roughly about 1,500 gallons to heat just the pool with the small boiler, but at the same time, the small boiler will also help heat some of the other places of the
Well,
building.
it does the hot water.
Yeah, yeah.
It keeps the kitchen open,
right.
so.
When the biomass is running, it runs everything with the
Right.
pool and everything.
Yeah. So
They could have at that time, when they put that biomass in for $150, had it so it would heat the pool. And they never put it in at that time. It would cost $10,000 to do it afterwards.
So that's why when I'm looking at this and when we're looking at everything we're doing for upgrades, we actually have like a longer term plan. So again, if it's gonna cost, $500 more right now versus doing it 10 years from now, or when we think we may need it down the road, we're putting that into consideration as well, where we can and when we can.
So with the upgrade, I could ask you later.
Yes, it will have network
I'm just-
capabilities.
Okay,
It will be, all the points on the sensors will be networkable, so we can watch it from a interface over the
that's what I
network.
did with the original system that we had. I put it in out there because they didn't call for it. I made sure that we put it in.
Yes.
It just simplifies expenses in the long run.
And some of the stuff that he'll be talking about later on, I'm sure, that all as well has been thought of. The 2 cents has been put in on that too.
On the last one was custodian maintenance. You notice it's dropped a little, $7,000? But if you go in deep, when you dig down into that, you notice the fuel, the electricity has gone way up. Remember, we transferred some of those people that was in OM over to transportation. That's why that's up high there, to put them in the right category. But also we have to calculate, because I'll give you a simple example. It was given to us that it costs us $45,000, $48,000 for electricity in this building. When January Chris comes in, he says, you already spent $48,000. I said, no, that was for the whole year. They gave us the wrong estimate when we had that. So you see why we had to raise those up. Same thing with fuel in wood chips, the estimates were way off.
Basically, the RSU used flat costing across all the buildings, so they averaged out the cost amongst all the buildings, which some numbers went higher because of that. Some numbers were averaged out lower because of that.
So that's what they're, any questions on custodian maintenance? It kind of ties into transportation because we flip-flop back and forth there. Hopefully we got that all cleared up this year.
What, and maybe this is the next line, but facilities maintenance, what's capital renewal?
Oh, the lighting project maybe?
No, that's all, a capital renewal is, yes, you're correct, sorry, cut you off right there, Kathy. Capital renewal is your lighting efficiencies, which I'll talk about a little in a minute. And we'll talk about the upgrades we got to do with locker rooms that everybody's screaming about. It also the capital improvement down in the elementary. You notice there's no more lockers there because the elementary kids could not use them. So we had designed and got a heck of a deal to put in cubbies there. They'll be installed there. That's part of it. Now, let me get back to that, okay? Because it's on my next list to go through, Chris. Chris, you were supposed to ask some questions. I forgot that.
Sorry.
Jim, did that help you out on that part?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to the debt service. The debt service in RSU 39, that's that pass-through money. So we pass through, you don't have to talk about. The debt service we have right now, FY is 113,000, that's your boiler master. We gotta pay that off. What we found out is it's under RSU 39's name. I went to TD Bank and asked them, look, we gotta get it out of their name. You know, we're by ourselves. They want it out of their name. It's our responsibility. TD Bank asked me to get 3 years of the audits from the town, because actually you guys are the fiscal agent of the whole thing. They called me back, they said, the town is so messed up, we won't refinance. They will not refinance that. So we're stuck with that. So we came up with alternative 2. I said, Chris, you can't go home until we figure this out. So we came up with alternative 2. We got some problems here. We got to restructure that. I'm going to talk about the main bond bank grant we got. If you look at the equipment that came over, as Chris indicated to me, first day he told me it's a bunch of junk. We're spending more money on replacing the stuff and trying to haywire that stuff together than keep it going. Our expenses that we pay, that Chris had to pay out for buses and stuff that was not done correctly, is way out of this, way out. So we want to restructure this whole debt service for $320,000 over 5 years. You know, that takes care of the van, that takes care of our over expenditures. By doing that, and also a payment for a new bus and also a payment for the main bond bank, reduces this year's obligation from 113 down to 111. So that's how we saved another $2,000. We have a tractor down there, Ford tractor. That's what we have on the farm. We use it for years. That uses more oil than it does gasoline or diesel on that darn thing. The loader's broken. It's got a major crack in it. We had an estimate, okay, what can we do with that thing? To break the tractor down, break it in half. If you grew up on the farm like we did, most of us did, break that sucker down, $20,000. The estimate came back. We cannot see us putting $20,000 into that piece of junk on that. So we're trying to
Are you talking a rebuild? Or are you just talking putting? I'm confused there because.
On the engine?
The tractor is normally just done when they're replacing a hydraulic pump or something like that. Whereas the actual engine breakdown, I could understand.
It's actually the engine. They got to put sleeves in there.
Okay. And they already have the sleeves, so it's just taking them out. Putting the new seal.
But the estimate that came back from, I call it Crowns. That's where we got our equipment, but I guess it's not Crowns anymore. That's the Ford. It's $20,000 to break that.
And that particular model wasn't originally sleeved. So they actually have to, because the piston shaft is wore so much, they actually got to bore it out and sleeve it. And they said, basically on that one, the backstory on that one, if we had someone who would be interested in looking at that, I would more than willing to do
I'd
that.
like to look at it.
What they told
I
us,
rebuild all kinds of tractors.
yeah. So what they told us, at
I'll sell it
Crown,
to
that's
you.
where we got,
Okay.
where we
Okay.
got our initial quote from was anywhere from 15 to 20,000 to rebuild the engine in it. And that's if they didn't run into major issues like the hydraulics. The hydraulics do have some whip in them and some play. The tractor's from like the 80s. So
What happened to our John Deere then?
which John Deere
We used to have a John Deere here.
Didn't come here.
didn't come over in the, we have the 850, if that's when you're talking, or the 835, the little one.
No, it's
It's
a good size one.
No,
We
we
got
didn't.
more deck and everything for it. I mean, there's.
Nope.
The only large tractor, right, the farm tractor or large scale tractor we have is the Ford.
Ford.
That's the only one that came over.
And that's gotta be in the 80s.
That's early 80s model. Yep. My dad's best friend has all Fords on his farm, and he's got a few of them.
So you can see why we want to restructure that. And I'll come back a little further to that. The nutrition program, we dropped it down $500. I have good news about that later, but that's basically there. So that's the expense, how we broke down the expenses as we go through there. You can see the rationales why we came up with this stuff. The major cost to this system, if we didn't have these two things I'm going to mention, our elementary budget only went up $30,000. That's the K through 8, the building and everything else. The major expense is special education of our OTC people and tuition. Because tuition went up and the number of kids went up.
And that's why we proposed bringing the high school back, because we could have saved money. But the town, there was such an outcry that they didn't want that now after, which is different than a few years ago. But, so we held off on that, but that's why we had that debate.
And that was a long debate on that.
And again, I think a lot of the debate is over lack of knowledge, lack of numbers, lack of,
So do you think that the people in town would be more willing to bring the high school students back?
I think a lot of those, I think the decision was based on emotion, not on fact. And I think
I agree.
we've got a long way to go. There's so much even about your budget right now that I had assumptions on that are wrong.
Right.
You know, and it's part of learning.
Yeah.
What your budget is, how it works,
Mhm.
because we always did the Caribou. You take your one number and just operate.
Yes.
And that's.
But
what-
I think the suggestion was that we, two boards would meet at least 2-3 times a year to understand as we go through this process. In getting our feet underneath us this year, we had so many things to do. Next year, starting July 1st, the board has instructed us to meet with Fort Fairfield Board and Caribou Board, see where we're going to go. We want to make a decision by December, so everybody knows up front. At the same time, keep you guys in a meeting with you at the loop too. So we're all working together. That's what we're trying to do.
And I've said it quite often too, and when we had the public meetings with the high school and whatnot, if anybody ever wants to come in and actually, because I know it's confusing, if we just talk about a number, it's confusing and it just looks big and it is what it is, but I'm here. If anybody ever wants to come in and sit down and go through and ask where we are month to month or year to date, I have no problems, because I'm a numbers guy. I can show you receipts, I can give you what you want, you know, and show you if we're up on a certain lineup. I have no problem showing you why we're up. I mean, I gotta say that everybody here, including the teachers, the custodial staff, the administration, everybody, I've never seen a group of people who are so conservative and only want to spend what they need to. If the teachers don't, you know, if the teachers need a sand table in their room, but it's not necessary, but they put it on their list of requisitions, they didn't buy it. This year, I mean, when we got our supplies in the beginning of the year, the teachers were very good with what we already had using them. Unfortunately, that's going to be an issue because we had to throw a lot of the crayons and the sand tables and the rice tables out because of the COVID issue. And we probably won't be able to use them next year, by the way it looks. Everyone's going to have their own. But I got to say that everyone here is definitely not, by no means, just going out and spending money like I've seen other places. And I came from the private world as well too, from a for-profit company. And if we had $100,000 that had to disappear, it was like buying, I would call it stupid stuff. Like, you know, they would go out and they would buy a bunch of new MacBooks or iPads or something like that, just to use what they needed to use, even if it was necessary.
I wish we had that problem.
Yeah.
And in fairness to the school, and this is kind of unusual for me because I'm usually on the other side of the fence fighting back and forth with the same dollars, is I've been involved in the municipal side of government since 1988. And the school budget process that's used, created by the state, is, I personally think, designed to be confusing to the public.
No question
It's
about it.
much like the TRIO program is to our end. It doesn't present the budget out in a way that the average, but yes, the selectmen and the school boards and stuff, we understand it because we work with it all the time. But selling it to the general public is very difficult. And I know the school one's more difficult because they had to deal with that, and I'm pretty decent with numbers, but it's very difficult because it's got all these connections, as I always call connecting the dots. And if you cut this over here, you lose this over here and vice versa. Ours is a little bit easier than that, but the audit report he was talking about, the whole TRIO financial program is designed to make auditing easy. It doesn't provide information well to the public, which is why I make up a different program that's kind of like an educational thing. And I think we can work together on that and make it tie them together, because the average voter no longer really understands how complicated municipal and educational is on a local basis. And I think that what we've done here the last couple of nights is a great step towards the fact of, now that we're starting to learn a little bit more, it doesn't mean we like it, but we understand it. And I have found historically the public, when they understand what's going on, are a lot more supportive of things. Not that anybody's going to be happy this year, but we've got to come up with something that says, we can't wait till next May to decide what our budget's going to be. We've got to be working together and finding where we can help each other.
True, totally agree. I'd like to go back to Jim's question, or Chris, on capital improvements. Is that, I told you I'd come back to that. The capital improvements, we did 2 phases. First, lights. These lights right here in the building were not efficiency. We went through efficiency main last year and got the halls and the offices, basically everything done except for classrooms and locker rooms, I think, on the first phase. The state came out with a second phase, says if you do this by a certain time, instead of giving you 40% or 50% off, we'll give you 70% off. So, holy Joe, that's pretty good money when you take a look at that. So we talked to Gilman's Electric, developed a plan with RCL.
RLC.
Oh, okay, thank you, RLC, Ryan, anyway. And he said, I'll do the work, but I won't charge you until after July 1st, or until you get your reimbursement back from the state. And Gilman said, we'll wait for until July or August to get our part. That's $40,000 under the capital improvement to do that. That's one of the things that I try to instill in the school committee, and they allow me to do that, is a long-range plan. You know, how are we going to cut down the electricity? This is one way of doing this. If the amount of money does not change, the consumption does, because every time they change electrical companies, our rates go up. And if we don't do these things, we'd be higher electricity paying. So we got to do those things to balance those off. One of the things like that. Second thing, in the pump room, just like Walt and Chris was talking about, there's a series of 2 pumps. We found out one pump was never serviced that well. The whole inside is gone. It leaks like a sieve. And that's very efficiency, $20,000 to repair that thing. And you need both pumps in midwinter to feed this whole building. So that's, you know,
We have variable speed pumps, which makes them even more.
expensive, yeah.
And they have to be in unison with each other, synchronized.
The other things under capital employment, which I'm trying to take a look at, is, which isn't much left after we do those 2 things, is the public says it's a disgrace to come into our locker rooms. You've heard it probably before I even got here. The disaster in there. So we started thinking about that. What are we going to do to help the public out much as we can? There's called a revolving renovation fund through the state. They forgive 70% of it. We only have to pay 30. So that's pretty good. 0 interest. No interest at all in that amount of money. So what we did is we wrote it for 3 phases. First phase is ADA compliance, which we have to have ADA compliance. ADA compliance means that elevator, that Walt always gets caught up, and then we have to get him out of there. It doesn't work. We are not compliant because they have a 2nd floor. We have 6 bathrooms that are not compliant. 2 were finished off a year or so ago, I
A
think.
couple years ago.
Yeah. We're patterning the other 6 behind that to do that, to bring them up to compliance. The state says, yes, you can do that. We need to do that part. That's under the ADA compliance on that. So the state said, okay, we'll give you money to help that out. The second part we applied for was indoor air quality. If you go into these classrooms on a midwinter day, it's stuffy, it's sweaty, it's awful, because those unison vents don't work. Some work, some don't.
1972 minutes, what do you want?
But what I'm saying is these things should have been done before. But anyway, that's water over the dam. I got a grant $500,000 to do that part of it. There's 200 something for the ADA. So they gave us 500,000 to do 60% of the building all the way through there. So we're looking at to replace those. Because the kids, you know, either they're falling asleep or they're freezing together. And you can't regulate them. Now I'm spending more oil and wood chips trying to keep this building when I have more efficient equipment here. That's what we're looking at, long range plans, trying to do that. In leveraging money from the state, which we cannot do. LCS community cannot afford $795,000 to do those. Can't do it. They could do that. That's why I went to the state. That's part of the restructuring of our debt there. Under that proposal, $784,685 is what we got for the grant. They're going to forgive 70% of it. We've got to pay back $235,407 over 10 years, $23,000, which is in that budget, which is reduced down from 113 to 111 with some other stuff we got to add in there. So we reduced that down. So we're leveraging money the way we want to do that, making the state help us out by pushing that across and giving the community a break on that also at the same time. So that kind of summarizes besides, oh, I know where I was going with that, Chris, I'm sorry. When we're doing the bathrooms, one of the big problems we have in the locker rooms is the stalls. The stalls, I think they were before 1973, some of them were bad in there. Well,
That's when it was built, so.
yeah, they're bad in there. Smelly, they probably got mold in it. You touch them and inside the metal flakes down through. That's how bad it is. The 6 bathrooms, we look at those dividers, those were replaced, I don't know when, but we're going to have our own people take those out and put them, replace them inside the 2 locker rooms. So we're not going to throw those away. They're good to keep. And we're going to keep those parts there. By doing that not destruction, what they call it, demolition. Demolition. My wife watches those shows all the time, so I should know that.
Disassembly,
Yeah.
Demolition means it's done.
Disassemble, yeah. We've taken those out to put into the locker rooms with our people, which will reduce the amount of money we have to borrow from the state to get the ADA compliance. So we're looking at that avenue too. That's why I'm saying that my bosses told me I gotta be good stewards. That's what I'm looking at on those, that capital improvement, Chris. That's the explanation between the whole thing.
Well, you know, one thing that everybody needs to understand is the univents themselves over time, the amount of money that's been spent on just keeping them operational. The motors in them being as old as they are will constantly have to be replaced. The filters are restrictive that they take, so it restricts the airflow. So it means heating your rooms takes longer to bring it up to temperature and to keep it at that temperature. So new univents, the way the new technology is, the way they go through the coils and stuff, it's much more efficient. So you're going to reduce your electric costs. You're going to reduce the heating costs of the fuel, and the water and stuff that they run through. It's going to be a good thing all the way around.
So in the peak of the winter, just saying electricity, we were running about $6,500 a month for electric bill for this place.
They should read it.
So with the light project and with these upgrades to the heating system, exactly.
We're
So
pushing for that,
hopefully
yes.
we can recognize some savings there in the next year, 2 years.
So that kind of sums up the expenditures part. So I hope you have an understanding. Again, as I call it the town manager, you understand it, might not like it, but at least you have an understanding of it. That's what the whole point of it. Some of the things we kind of tossed around, and I got to give Chris some credit to this. I don't like give too much because it gets a swell hit, so I can't do that too often.
Don't do that.
Yeah, right.
I gotta be able to get out of here tonight.
Yeah, some of the things we're talking about, working with the town, besides meeting with boards back and forth to give a good input. Can you do this next year? Can you do that next year? What about postponing it for 5 years down the road or something like that? We're thinking about snow days. We have a population here that has to come in snow days. We would, to work with the community, we would also like to take 2 of our people in snow days, send them out to the maintenance department and help them remove snow for that day. I don't need everybody to do that stuff in here. I can send 2 out That's a possibility.
Especially when Public Works is taking care of the bulk of our snow removal
Right.
for us up here.
That's the way we used to do it.
Yeah.
I was bringing my personal truck down,
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, so that's one of the issues we want to explore later. No matter what the budget is, I think we need to go that way also. The second thing is, and this might be a little political behind the whole thing too, is services of vehicles. We have Andy, an excellent mechanic, everybody knows him very well. He services our bus, he services Caswell bus. We got a proposal out to do Woodland, I haven't heard back from him to service theirs. He services the vans, he services, every time we turn around, we break one of these foolish lawnmowers that came over the arc. He has to fix that thing. We're saying that we can service the PD, we can service the highway department, not the major stuff like the big welding and stuff like that. Oil change, filter changes, things like that,
Tire rotation.
tire rotations. Those kind of things we're talking about. That could help the town out. But when you do that, you got the other avenue. You're taking money out of our private sector over there. So you got to be aware of that too. If you want to do that, you got to, you know, someone's got a service station out there, is paying taxes, and you take that away from them. I know that's an issue you need to take a look at.
We've discussed this, trying to combine these, but you know, it's still the town's money, even when a school's doing it, we're still, the taxpayers are still funding it, so, you know, when people bring that up to me, I just express to them, well, would you like to pay this and this, or would you just like to pay this? And then it's like, oh, I see your point.
But that's an issue you guys will have to talk about on that.
And Andy said basically, you know, as most of you guys know Andy, he's close to retirement. So he said, you know, for him at his age, he's not able to work on the big equipment. Like if there's like one of the big trucks down, he can't go out and weld a plow back together. He's not able to do that anymore. But, you know, lawn mowers, the town equipment, that's the smaller the trucks, you know, he's very willing to
And
share resources.
when you're done with them in the season, in the fall, bring them down, let's sharpen the blades, what we need to do, service those, put them away, ready to go, instead of waiting in the spring trying to do that stuff.
And
Get-
we've got a lot of services in town essentially duplicated, where you guys are up plowing snow with an old tractor, and we've got giant equipment that we can remove the snow in minutes.
Right.
We're both mowing lots of lawn and have lots of, at the end of the day, probably the wrong size equipment to do the number of acres that we're actually both doing.
So, good lead in. Next one, Chris. Did you read my notes, Chris?
No.
Okay. Is about mowing. My understanding, basically, and Chris does a little research, the town takes about a day and a half to mow around here. We can move in the summer after John gets done, the bus runs, move him a day and a half to help you guys mowing. So that would help out. That's not going to take it from any services either, because with restructuring of the debt, we were able to buy a couple pieces of mowing to do that. So we're able to work with that angle next year. At the same time, you got a rec department person that has been trained on field management and stuff like that. We would like to have him take care of the back acres of ours.
The soccer field, the baseball.
Things like that, instead of him sitting, he's not here, I hate to speak when he's not here. But if he's sitting around just fiddling his thumb, let's put him to work. We all have to work. We grew up in the county, we have to do that. There's no, so that's an option we can take a look at.
Instead of shorting public works because of a higher school budget, use some of our people, so if we have cutbacks, we can put them to work for the town, and so everybody gets a job, but we just share
Right.
resources.
And one of the biggest mistakes that's happened is when, and I'll use a cemetery case, a town I was involved in. They got mad when I went over and bought expensive lawnmowers. Well, I've had one from Wally World for 10 years. Yeah, you mow your lawn maybe 6-8 times during the summertime. The cemetery is mowing 8 hours a day,
Right.
5 and 6 days a week. And even when you're talking about the bigger tractors and stuff by the various manufacturers, I'm not trying to be light here. It's really a big step before you get up to the commercial grade that can mow that much, because, you know, you don't have the cast iron and the stuff in there, so they're always breaking steering.
But
Well, I
why,
could have bought that tractor. No, you couldn't have bought that tractor. Heck of a
Yep.
lot cheaper.
but why should the town buy a tractor and we turn around and buy the same tractor?
That's what, even if we store it in one place and take turns using it, it's still long term.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact of servicing it beforehand.
If you service it beforehand and you find out, gee, I think I need a belt or something. And the first day of spring, you want, oh, I gotta mow that lawn 6 inches up or a foot, I know, oh geez, I gotta order a belt. That's gonna take another week. Let's get these things done. You know,
We used to do this when you proposed it many years ago, when I first got here back in the 80s.
oh, that was further than that. Come on. Come on, Walt.
We had gang mowers.
Yep.
And they were 12 feet wide. We had 2 of them. And we used to share them back and forth, not the person, but the equipment. So we did all this, then the town would take it and go do theirs. It worked out really well.
In a sense, it does. But if you have one person on that tractor, like we're
Oh,
volunteer,
I know what you're saying.
it says he knows that piece of equipment. And he's gonna take care of it because he's gonna, if it's here, I'm gonna go all over him if he breaks that damn equipment.
And that's what happened. That's why it's separated.
Yeah.
Because we had one person.
To be successful, the entire plan's going to have to truly be managed.
Yeah.
With managers meeting on their level and right down through.
Because if you, like any piece of equipment, you put 2, 3 people in. When we were haying at the farm, I had one tractor. And if I jumped into the other tractor, Tim would pull me right up, get the devil out of here. That's my tractor, don't you come near it. Because I knew that tractor and I knew how to load that truck with that tractor.
The real issue comes down to, if you go back, for those people that remember it, is the school and the town was one family. Then the state came in, for some reason, decided we should be divorced and work separately. And it's time now, particularly when you're not in a school district that ties everyone, it's time to bring that back together again and be doing what's in the best of town. And there's no better time here in Limestone than right now, where I think I'm very impressed with the last 2 sessions. The fact that you even come into the budget one, third one before, because I've dealt with schools, districts and stuff, as far as they're concerned, and I've had more than one superintendent tell me where the money comes from is not their problem. Well, I wish it wasn't my problem where the money comes from, but it is. And in a lot of towns, this is who gets slayed, is the municipal side of the budget, because when you get done, the state says you're going to pay this. And I'll tell you, God forbid the day when they come and say they're also going to take over municipal services and they're going to tell you, because I don't have a lot of confidence in the state.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
we gotta be transparent. Hold
You
on.
just get started.
This is getting low.
Yeah.
And I need a clarification, I guess, more than anything else. Actually, at the last meeting, I hung around doing stuff. Like I told you, I'm always emailing, or Kathy's emailing me at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. My wife said, what the hell? What are you doing down there? You know, but when you need to do the work, you need to do the work. But in your last meeting, I get clarification. Did you vote that you're going to have a referendum vote and that's it? No town meeting?
That's where we're at.
Okay, if you do that, I need some clarifications on the article that I have written. I've read them, I've got all the articles ready to go if you had a regular town meeting. The article that the town manager needs is a summation article, which,
One line.
yeah, the bottom line, whatever it
That's
is.
what the governor said.
Yes.
Maybe only this year, but the governor said one line. For the school.
But does that include, because under main bond issues, I have to have a separate article for that.
Yes.
I have to have a separate article for that.
Said that, so whatever you're gonna have, I started doing the warrant today, now that we're past the meeting the other day, whatever you're gonna have in there that you people say you're gonna have in there, we'll put in there. There's some understandings around that came out that I wasn't even aware, that I don't think the governor did. Because we hold it on the election day, there's only 14 days afterwards that you can have it. If you schedule your meetings separate from election day, you got all the time in the world. But either way, it's not going to get better. So you've read the same stuff.
Yeah, I brought you a copy in case you didn't have it.
And yeah, I have the same one.
Throw it away.
But, you know,
Tracy.
we've got to get this. And of the 3 choices the governor gave us, none of them are really good. And
So I guess what I'm asking, I'll bring the articles down, but Does that one line give us permission to borrow money for the new bus? The article, that
Is
if
it in your budget?
under read instruction, yes, it is, but you gotta borrow how do I say this? Let me read the article. If this was a regular time, this is the article I'd have to put out by requirements. Shall the municipality officer, because you guys are, you have to borrow the money, / school committee, be authorized to issue notes not to exceed a period of 5 years, because you can't go any more than 5 years, in the name of the municipality or district for the purpose of purchasing a school bus in the amount not to exceed $87,500 and appropriate the same. Now, the way that works, I don't know if you're familiar with how you purchase buses in the state of Maine. I have to apply for one with permission from my school committee. I apply for them, they grant it. The first year you make the payment, you divide 87.5 by whatever it's 23,000, whatever it may be. You make that payment, that's in the budget. I got that in the budget. Year number 2, the state gives it back to you. Year number 3, the state gives it back to you. Year number 4, the state gives it back to you. Year number 5, the state gives it back to you. Year number 6, they give you that first payment back. So it doesn't cost you. Now, I gotta be clarified, mine say it doesn't cost you. They charge about 5% because they might only fund, out of the 87, they might fund 85,000 because of our index factor that we have to use up here. So you take 2,500, spread it over 5 years, it's chunk change. It's a good deal to buy your money. Now you're saying, I got buses out there, nothing matter with the bus. You go out the bus returning in there, it's a walking danger. We don't even drive it. It's so bad, and that's the one returning in. When you buy new buses, it's more efficient on gas, more efficient all the way around, and has the safety features that we need to do on it.
And has a 5-year warranty, so if anything goes wrong.
Right.
They fix it, not us.
Are you buying gas buses or diesel buses?
We're going for gas this time.
This is gas.
Yes.
With the cost, so here's our reason behind that. It's number one, it's cheaper, but we ran into on the internationals because of the emission standards and the DEF systems on them.
Expensive.
Almost every school in this area burns out their DEF systems and they have to replace them. $5,000.
I was gonna say, I know that.
And it's because the buses don't run hot enough or long enough to
They
keep
idle.
the system cleaned out. When they're idling, they can't burn out. So they actually plug themselves up and it's a known issue. But to go gas, number one, we're saving about $5,000 in the price, as well as all the DEF that we have to, the DEF fluid, the servicing, you know, just all the stuff now that comes along with the diesel versus gas. And honestly, the fuel efficiency between the two, it's horrible no matter what, but they're almost equivalent again.
That comes from the California Environmental.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it does.
That's right.
Yep.
Because the first time they did it in the plow trucks and dump trucks, they put burning engine up because guess what? It's not as hot as California in the wintertime.
Yep.
And,
In Oklahoma, they use propane
Yes.
or natural gas, actually. Natural gas.
We actually, again, I don't want to stray away from you guys, but Randy was asked if we were interested in trying out a hybrid bus
Electrical.
and an electric hybrid and possibly a natural gas / propane. When they realized where we were and they realized it might hurt their statistics in their trial, we got cut off that list.
Yeah.
But we have been looking like if we could get a free bus as a demo or try, we're looking at any and every grant and avenue we can to get equipment to not cost.
Anyway, that does have to be a separate line.
Okay, so the bus, that's an issue with the bus. Now, second issue, not quite done with you all yet. Shall the municipality officer or the school committee be authorized to issue notes not to exceed a period of 5 years in the name of the municipality district for the purpose of restructuring the school debt in an amount not to exceed 320,000 and appropriate the same? By restructuring, that's why I spent some time on restructuring debt. By restructuring that, I lowered the payments down. I'm able to get the first payment for the bus. I'm able to get the payment for Maine Mutual Bond, MMB, Mutual Bond. I'm able to do that and buy some of the lawn equipment we need to do that. So it's restructuring that. By doing that, we're lowering the budget down also.
Maine Bond Bank you referring to?
No, we have to go local on this one.
Okay.
Maine Bond Bank, This one is the main bond bank. We have to do that.
I was
one, too.
wondering if they moved the date out on that this year. Where it was because of the virus.
I know the application in, I know it's been approved. That came from our bond council, so we're on target to do that. The last issue, now I gotta go back to ED 279 for a minute for you. If you float back that just for a minute. It's not bedtime yet, Walt.
I don't know.
My eyes are getting pretty heavy.
If you go to the second page of your ED 279 and go down to B where it says basic counts. You see that? Okay. And it's, if you go down to the third line, it says Delta education courses at 0.1. And you go across there, 6.7 times 7,200 is $48,000 in our subsidy. We don't have a Delta education program here. So what, to get that, capture that money, what we did is where we get the kids. They're from Loring. That's where our account, because Loring Job Corps is on Limestone. We get those count. They go to Caribou over there. And Dan McDonald says, I'm gonna lose a lot of money. What we did is work out a deal is I'll give them 60%, I keep 40% for not doing any work at all. If I didn't do that, I'll lose it all. And Joey Smith jumped over backwards. He said, I can't throw away money like that. You've got, that's where we get some money back. So we devised a contract with the Delta Ed and Caribou to count the numbers. They send the number over, I report it, comes back on that. So,
Are we able to publicize that in Limestone
oh, sure,
so that people from Limestone?
yes,
can-
yes, because I have a contract
I
with
used
them.
to do this for many years, because I was the adult ed director. And
Well,
I shared,
Why weren't you the superintendent? You did everything else. Come on.
we shared everything like that. And I did hold courses here too, under their umbrella, because we were trying to direct everything over there, and it came back here, and it worked out wonderful.
You can establish a Delta education program. I'm certified as a Delta education director. That's where I started. In classroom, my superintendent at the time says, I see something, I want you to start out in Delta Ed director there. I worked nights and taught during the days, and I moved up to assistant superintendent. That's where my beginning was. You can do it, but this is a better deal.
Yep.
Because you don't have to put any money on.
Yep.
But way the article is written, and back to the question to our town manager is to see if the municipality / school unit will appropriate $29,980.18. That's what comes out of that. That's 60% of that money. For adult education and raise 5,000 as local share. It's in the budget already. But I think I need that article also.
I think we do too. Anytime there's a separation like that, I think we have it in order for the people to understand and for the government to be happy with it.
Okay, now let me ask you this question. Hot lunch. If you look under the categories I gave you, at the very last page, this is all new territory for all of us. If this is regular time, I know what to do, but this is new. If you look under all other expenditures, where you got nutrition program, $500, that should be a separate article too, right there. But it's in the budget. But because it's outside, it's like an enterprise, a company that you have outside there, because we receive money from the state from another category. I think you have to have that one too. I don't know. That's the questions I'm posing to the town manager.
But there's no problem with it as far as I'm concerned, because, you know, even in the warrant article, the last entry can say included in budget. It doesn't have to say the whole article and leave it at that. You can still use those two words in the end, included in budget. That makes people understand, oh, okay. Okay.
It's not additional money in
Right.
addition to.
Right,
Right.
because that's gonna be the question. So is this extra?
Is it in?
Yeah, so if they know that it's included in it already, you won't have a problem.
It's just like restructuring. We're borrowing the money, but it's in the budget
Exactly.
already there. In the main mutual bond one, it's in the budget. It's just giving us authorization to do that. That's all.
So with that being said, can you list all of that in one warrant article so that you're not confusing people to think that it's in addition to.
That's my concern. I want to make sure people understand what they're voting for. If we're not gonna have a town meeting, we have to do something to explain this, just like to you guys.
You can put an explanation at the bottom.
Town meeting, not a referendum.
Yeah, I don't like the referendum.
Explain how to do the other two options.
We can't do it though.
If
we
you
know
look at the
it's probably
guidelines,
be
you've got to
more than
hold it
50
to it's. One
Okay.
person doesn't feel they want to go in because
Governor's
it's
gonna
safe,
say, no,
Sure you
cancels
They
everything.
have all the protests, right? Governor let it happen.
well,
You can have 100 people at a protest.
That's
We'll just
right.
call it a protest.
100,000.
Right. It is a protest.
Budget protest.
well, we've seen
And
the
it might be
mandate that
just in the
says
talking
no.
stage, but I
It'll only take
understand
a few
that,
minutes to make some signs.
that if it's worded in a certain way, it's one line with all the information that has to be in there. Maybe they haven't come to that. There was talk about that in Augusta. Because we're looking at the same thing as, you go, if you go on the ballot, you got 90 things they got to vote on versus grouping them together. And we would experiment around with how could you group them together, but provides all the same information. And truthfully, in the way the budget is done, the same with yours, is there are things that group together. There's 5 services that we're required, police, fire, rescue, we're required to do those, and it's the bottom line.
But you have to accept the revenue sharing. Isn't that a different question?
Yeah, it's, so as I said, there's a whole bunch
Yeah.
of stuff in there that, and I just listed under unintended consequences of the action of the governor.
Can we do a quasi, just a town meeting, not a special town meeting where we have
For explanations?
a maximum of 50 people come in? You can come in this day or you can come in this day and do 2 separate sessions.
You can do public hearing, you still have to do the public hearings if you go on the ballot. You still have to have public hearings.
So we could have the public hearing like the 1st of July and the
We
voting on
could
the
have, we could
14th.
have 10 public hearings if it takes that many.
You could have multiple sessions in a night saying
Yeah.
that one's gonna be from 7 to 8, the next one's gonna be from 8 to 9. And so that if you have more than 50 people show up, you just
Move them across.
move them across so that you're able
They
to.
don't want to have to repeat it.
Can you restrict it saying that I'm having a hearing here, but only registered voters can come? Because if you don't,
Because I think any.
but if it will kick over the 50 people.
Meeting, so you have to have an open door.
You can have just residents though, right? So that.
No, I think you can.
Town meeting don't have to be resident.
I was just thinking,
The only
because then they'll take up
stipulation
space from the residents.
in order to speak at it, you have to be.
But what happens if what happens if a family comes in with 6 minors?
We've never had that problem.
Well, this is the part of the problem about having the meeting. You've got all these requirements you've got to do, and if one person says, I couldn't vote because it was unsafe, they weren't following 100% of the guidance rules, it null and voids your meeting.
Well,
And
well, and what I was gonna say with this, if we do the town report, like we always do, line by line in there, so that that's out before we start all this stuff, people have a chance to look it over. If they got questions, they'll be able to ask. And so if we do the public hearings, there are a
Maybe
couple of
less people because more will understand.
right. And so everything will be laid out. And then at the public hearings, you say A through L at that meeting. Next night, say, M through whatever.
And don't leave it a chance for whoever to specify the,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you can control it that way and everybody still gets their say in there.
in this PowerPoint thing that I do, has been doing now 20-some years, it's a very informative that breaks this all down, and you can put it on so that it's on the top. I don't know what we have here for all the different things, but you can put it on so it plays all the time, and you can have a number, call this number if you've got questions on it. But it's very explanatory down through the whole thing, and we can certainly tie anything the school wants.
Are
And
we recording this? Because then we could just play this for people.
Yes.
Are we recording this? Well, we can just play everybody recording.
so the whole concept is we become unattached to the town meetings when you take in most communities, the number of people that show up.
Yep.
And that's why a lot of communities now are going to the ballot anyway, because they were having so few people show up at the town meeting that they weren't getting the amount of people. Well, if you don't go, it's your tough luck. Well, So a lot of the communities, when I just left my last retirement, this is their first year, so they're probably gonna get away with a lot more the first year because it's the first year they tried it, but the town of Wellsville as a selectman, they've been on it for a number of years. And, you know, because you really got to get more people voting, which when you're raising the budget, is a death blow.
Yeah.
But if you educate the people, I found out in my career, and I've been involved, the first time I went to a town meeting in Bicep was 1984. I have found people that know where the money's going and why, and the justification that you're going to save money, typically will support that. Because. you
One more
gotta-
page.
Okay, I got 10 minutes to my curfew.
Okay, one more page.
Am I in Eastport yet? No.
No way.
I try to do the meetings at 9 o'clock.
What time is it?
Quarter,
It's
10
7
out.
minutes out.
Oh, Jones, I'm a normal thing. Besides working with the town, I like to leave it at a positive note too. I think the whole meeting was very positive. You got a good explanation. If you're sitting home and can't think of it, give me a call, give me a quick email, or Chris can answer it. I try to keep him tied in things, but he's a young fellow. He's learning this process. We'll get him taught after a while. What we did positive for this year, and I want to bring that up, is to reduce the budget, we looked at efficiency main field lighting. We did that. That's a positive thing. We went after the main bond bank renovation funds, which is on the price of these things that we are required to do. We get some really cheap money out there. I told you I was able to write Title V grant to allow to move a very high powered teacher over to federal money. So that reduces the total commitment we're not asking from the town. We're looking at a new bus. And also under the hot lunch program, because of this the way we restructured, and we were able to partner with the school north to us, Caswell, and feed the children that were required because MSSM said they closed their hot lunch down. We were able to partner with Caswell. We were able to we were able to generate enough funds, I hope, to replace the cooler, the walk-in cooler. And that's expensive. That thing's shot. And that's another thing that we're not asking the community to pay for, because we were able to work this thing out the last 3 months and hopefully have enough money to replace that thing. That's what we aim. At the same time, and I jokingly tell Chris, I made another $750 with you this week. I wrote a full plate grant. It's over $3,500 now. I just sent you the
Yeah, I got
confirmation
it today.
that I did it again. I got another one. They love me down there. I don't know why, but they do. I got it again. That money is to be spent into the hot lunch program. It's targeted. I can't reduce my electricity or anything like that. We are able to buy a high tower or a greenhouse to restructure our hot lunch program to teach the kids, this is where your food's coming from. Strengthen our science classes and STEM classes by that. We're able to purchase that in the groundwork. No money from the locals. That's all from that grant. And I want just to emphasize those positive things that we did out there. The last thing, we haven't got confirmation on this, and Walt's well aware of it. He was around when I did it the first time around. Russ Grant is back around again. A Russ Grant helps us with technology. We are in with a lot of different schools. In fact, MSSM is going to be the physical agent for it this time around. That's going to get us some of our technology stuff back that we want. We have to match. A lot of it's in kind. And Walt knows how to play the figures as well as I do with in-kind stuff. That's what you do. So we're looking for those kind of things. With the total support from my school committee, they allow me to go out and do those things and get those things. And that, by looking at those things and reducing the burden to the taxpayers, but giving our children at LCS the best quality education around by doing that. So I'd like to leave that as a positive note for you, what we're looking at. And we made it underneath this guideline.
So, in conclusion, what I'd like to see from you, possibly, is some notes on each of the categories, because we're gonna post ours on the web. We're gonna put the information up there so we can start getting information out. So if I can do the same with yours, you know, so that they have both of them out there on our website as well, because, you know, more and more people are using our website. I've been checking the numbers on it. They're going way up, so it's good.
Okay.
But if I could have that, because I can use information to explain things and already start getting the public aware of what's going on rather than saying, we can't do this, you know, type thing. And
You get to talk to my wordsmith. My wordsmith, she's good at that.
Okay.
And I think I can twist
Whatever you
Kathy.
can get me, I can build a page on the web for it and put it right there. Or you can put it on your web page too.
We
Probably
can put it
just-
both.
Well, I'd say we'll just do, if you're gonna put it on the town, we'll just link to the town and say that
Okay,
we put everything on the town as far as, but we may put ours on there, but we're definitely put the link to the town. for the
Yeah.
whole-
and that's what I've done on ours. I put
And
the link to
Facebook.
the School, so.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
So I think the more information we get out there, and if we have two public meetings to explain what was in the webpage, I think that information gets out there.
Yeah.
It's not a great scenario. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things as I went through and explained to you, our hands are tied.
Well, at the end of the day, it's very tough to go ask the taxpayers for 8 mil
Yep.
or
It is.
whatever we might be.
Especially when the majority of them are fixed income.
You know?
I mean, they could just say sayonara.
Yep, I
A lot of them
understand that.
can walk away from their house.
And
and
I,
it costs them a dime.
and I feel that too. I understand that. You know, Jim, I don't know if I've been with Caswell for 25 years up there. At the beginning, we were the same problem up there. We're working through it all the way through this. I hope it doesn't take me 25 years to get you guys straightened out, but up there, that's where I was at the town meeting up there. They passed the budget. By restructuring the debt up there, let me go back and give you another example. I'm going to hold you from it, Walt.
Okay.
When I picked it up from the town manager's comments last meeting, he says, after this gets through this hurdle, we really need to talk about how we're going to fix these roads. If we do a little road here, it's going to cost us more money if we don't bundle it. If we don't bundle it together, and do 5 years worth of work, I think that was your quote, I'm not sure. If we did 5 years of work of roads, it's going to be cheaper and paid over the 5 years. If we bundle it, instead of taking 1 year, because when you ask a contractor to come in and do hot top, they got to bring all the equipment in. If they only have to do it once, it's reduced down. That's what I'm doing with restructuring of the debt, by doing that instead of bundling those kinds of things across there. Is that a fair statement, town manager?
It's, you know, it's an interesting thing that municipalities haven't done. I know it works because we've worked with it. Those of us who come from the private sector, we considered weird and come to the public side of it, but I'll give you a simple example. When I was in Eastport, it's 120 miles from Bangor.
Mhm.
To have Lucas Tree or the other one come down, it's $2,000 just to get them to bring their equipment down. So every year, because we had a lot of trees to cut down, we got everybody in town that had trees they wanted to cut down. But we divided the 2,000 up by the number of trees and everything.
Yep.
And because the company's now looking at sending a crew down there for a week or 2 weeks. And it was amazing how much you can do. Same with paving roads. Unfortunately, town meeting usually makes you wait till June before you can do something. Well, if you order a new dump truck, plow truck, and you order it in July because you've got the money now, it's not going to be built because they're already due. But if you get the money approved in January, they're really interested in giving you a good deal. So that's the type of stuff we have to bring to get the town over the situation that we're in, is fixing the equipment and stuff. How much is it costing to run it? That's the cost avoidance that the private industry had to do to stay in business. And we've got to do the same thing.
Totally agree. So I think that's where both our experiences are very compatible in that issue. Things like that.
Well, it's bedtime.
Yeah.
So
Not bedtime, it's-
the question is,
Hungry.
Kathy's going to get some information to you.
Okay.
Which, just send me a copy
We'll
of it.
figure it out.
Yeah. And I'll get with the town manager for the articles. So
Yep.
When do you want it?
Work on, right?
What I'm expecting we're gonna have to do is once, I've just started really trying to put the warrant together. I think what we gotta do is we're gonna have to kind of rush into it, and then we gotta get a hold of MMA, the school, whatever, say, does this work? Because we don't wanna get down to that day and then have somebody come in and say, oh, you didn't dot the I over here.
Right.
I like the fact that they're saying all these, we can do this, that's, everything else, but that doesn't mean some attorney isn't gonna challenge it.
Right. Also true. So beginning of next week, Monday, Tuesday, if you have my articles,
Well, if you want to take a minute after we're done here, I'll show you what I'm putting together for the town, and your article, yeah, is whatever we gotta have it, I think, we gotta have the format done, because we've only got, I think, 3 more days before we have to have.
if I get them to you Monday morning, I'll email them to you.
Plenty of time, yeah,
Okay. My boss won't let me take the weekend off, so I'll have to do that.
I'm taking it all,
My-
first day of summer,
Yeah, my wife says, you're not going anywhere, it's tomorrow. You're
Yeah.
staying right here.
one day closer to winter.
Yeah.
So if I get it to you Monday,
Tuesday would be the latest if you can do that.
Okay,
I won't speak, because I'm not gonna have mine ready before Tuesday, so.
then I'll check in on with you Wednesday and I'm back up here.
And we'll verify that everything we've got is right. And I mean, I'm basing it on everything we're told, but
Right.
I don't know what's.
But
gonna
that's so
change-
fluid, it changes.
Change